Welcome to R&R Living Life. In this episode, Rick and I explore the Dargo High Plains Road, make our way to Bright before returning to sail via Hotham, Omeo and Bruthen. What a day we had through some of the most stunning alpine country in Australia. We left sail early and made our way through Stratford and on to Stockdale, a small farming community with its rolling hills and the Mitchell National Park. The park has a number of remote river gorges, open forest and rainforest gullies which flank the serpentine Mitchell River. Burning off had been happening in the area, so the morning was quite smoky and hazy. We were travelling through the Shire of Wellington, with little hamlets like Cobbanna, Castleburn and the nearby locality of Prettyboy, before reaching Dargo, one of Victoria's most remote communities, nestled in the foothills of the legendary Dargo High Plains. Dargo is a country town situated on the Dargo River in the Great Dividing Range, and is an entry point for the national parks of the Alpine, the Avon Wilderness and the Mitchell River National Parks. The Dargo Pastoral Run covered the river valley, but a township did not develop until gold was discovered in the rivers of the district, when in 1869 a government prospecting party explored the tributaries of the Mitchell River, including the Dargo, Wanangata, Wanangara and Crooked Rivers north and northwest of Dargo, with evidence found in the Dargo River. However, better prospects were found on the Crooked River, and a rush quickly ensued. Hotels and stores were established in Dargo to supply the miners. In 1863, payable gold was discovered in the upper Dargo River, and several small settlements sprung up there. The Dargo High Plains to the north was first leased for grazing in the 1860s, and with the development of mining, a number of accommodation houses catered to the miners travelling across the plains. The Treasure family became established residents, mining, supplying travellers and raising cattle. Now cattle are bred and raised on the high plains and brought down to lower pastures below Dargo during winter. The terrain was rugged and access to the diggings difficult, so in 1864 government parties cut a dray road from Dargo to the Crooked River field, and tracks linking the diggings with Omeo and with Harrietville across the Dargo High Plains. In 1864 quartz reefs were discovered on the ridges in the course of cutting a track between the Crooked and Dargo rivers. However, another settlement on top of the ridge, finally known as Grant, quickly became the principal town on the goldfield. Despite its promise, the Crooked River field quickly waned. By the late 1880s, most settlements were deserted. The longest survivor, Talbotville on the Crooked River, was abandoned in the 1940s. Dargo survived because it developed as a stopping place and supply centre for the diggings. The broad river flats were suitable for agriculture, so it was not dependent on mining. Walnut trees were planted. Some, over a century old, are still being harvested today, with tobacco and hops were tried in the 1880s. Cattle, sheep and pigs were raised. Many high country cattlemen have homes in the stock breeding and agricultural district, while the Dargo Hotel was established in 1898. On leaving Dargo, we continued along the Dargo High Plains Road, a legendary road located in Victoria that is closed by snow in winter and unsuitable for caravans due to some steep, twisty sections. The road begins with a small section of bitumen, but then turns to gravel that was rough in places, and it goes without saying dusty, especially the closer we got to the junction with the Great Alpine Road. The road tops out at 1,628 metres above sea level and runs 70 kilometres north through remote alpine country. It was certainly stunning scenery, though difficult to see through the trees for a lot of the journey. But when it opened out onto plains, it was amazing. The road wound its way through tall mountain forest country, through lofty mountain ranges, and down plunging valleys into lush forest country, and we often caught a glimpse of the sweeping mountain views that seemed to be unending. The high plains country, with large areas of relatively flat ground covered in mountain grasses, bounded either by the tree line or wooden post and wire fences, and then would drop away into deep valleys, where there was quite likely to be other broad flat grazing areas. Up here, cattle are grazed in designated areas during the summer months, and are then mustered out of the mountains into the lower country for winter. We journeyed through the rare and beautiful Alpine National Park that covers an area of 646,000 hectares and is the largest national park in Victoria. The park protects some of Australia's highest mountains and pristine alpine environments. It really was an amazing place. Such wild beauty and the magnificent scale of endless views overwhelmed me on some stretches. The alpine area is home to over 60 huts built as refuges for mountain cattlemen, skiers and hikers, and the road workers who maintained the first alpine road over the range. We passed a large group of four-wheel drive enthusiasts, or should I say contenders for the Billy Goat track, with the pinnacle at the top said to have a fantastic view of the surrounding mountains and valleys. But it was not for us. We were quite happy knowing just what the boat was capable of, and Rick's driving ability without having to test our skills in front of a huge crowd of young four-wheel drive enthusiasts. We have found that they don't slow down for you, throwing stones as they pass while taking up most of the road. So much for manners and showing consideration to other drivers. We have found that they leave no room for mishap, travelling in convoys so close together that if sudden stopping is needed, there is no room to manoeuvre or stop. Once we reached the junction of the Dargo High Plains Road and the Great Alpine Road, we made our way to Bright, down the very steep bitumen road, with multiple sharp corners, twists and turns of the range. I take my hat off to the couple of bike riders who were trying to conquer the mountain. The road from Dargo to Bright is spectacular. Deep valleys, tall slender trees, mountain ridges that hide the horizon, and made us thankful for the boat we were travelling in today. The road in those early years would have been very difficult to traverse, especially with a wagon or cart attached. Some sections were very steep. We were now travelling on a small section of the Great Alpine Road, one of the highest roads in the country, winding through mountains, valleys and forests and past rivers to Bright. The name came into use in 1998 when the final section between Hotham and Inner Plains was sealed. Before that, the roads had long existed under other names. We passed through Harrietville at the top of the Ovens Valley, around 1,300 metres lower in altitude than the highest point of the road near Mount Hotham that lies east of the town. The town is situated where the Great Alpine Road starts to climb back up to Mount Hotham. Harrietville was named after the first white woman who lived there. The town began as a gold mining settlement during the Victorian gold rush and had a fascinating gold history, including the Rose, Thistle and Shamrock mines, which operated between 1860 and 1934, yielding about 2.5 tons of gold, with alluvial gold being initially mined. Many of the early miners were Chinese. Later, the mining shifted to deep reefs accessed via shafts. Back in 1883, the Bright to Omeo horse-drawn coach service commenced, and a pub called the Star Hotel was one of the stops, with the post office opened in July 1865. From Harrietville we made our way to Bright, named after British politician John Bright. The town was originally known as Morse's Creek, which flows into the Ovens River at Bright. The town is very picturesque, especially with the trees at this time of the year. reds, oranges and yellows with the light and dark greens of the evergreens against the clear blue sky. The coach route between Bright and Omeo opened in 1883. We didn't stay long in Bright. There were so many people everywhere, and try as we might to find a park, it was impossible. So drove around to check out the town, and then made our way back to Harrietville, passing through the small hamlet of Freeburg. From Harrietville, the road climbs uphill to Mount Hotham, about a 30-kilometre drive through the Alpine National Park. This steep part of the road can be very dangerous, and we took great care negotiating some of the very twisty sections and numerous hairpin bends. We passed Corbett's Flat Mine, the seventh highest mine in Victoria, located on Mount Smythe Creek, known for felspar mining, at an elevation of 1,084 metres. We then passed the Lost Reef at 1,200 metres, where on the adjacent spur is a long-forgotten quartz reef mine named the Star Extended. In 1923 the reef was cut off by a fault. Several attempts to locate the reef over the years have failed to find the comparatively rich Lost Reef. The mine was located on the east branch of the Ovens River and accessed by a small bridle track along a narrow spur to the north of where we had stopped. Further on was Black Hole at 1,330 metres, and not for the faint-hearted. The Black Hole refers to the geographic location in the upper reaches of the east branch of the Ovens River, named by miners who lived and passed through the ravine, and thought to be cursed, as during the long winter months the sun barely reached the deepest recesses of the valley. Miners living in the locality complained that bedding and clothing were always damp and cold. Over the years, many gold miners lived in the valley, working both alluvial and quartz reef gold deposits. We pulled in at Danny's Lookout, not far from Hotham, to admire the incredible views in all directions. I wouldn't go too close to the edge because of the wind, but Rick did take a peek below the edge of the road and made out the old coach road that follows the course of the current road. We did take some time to revel in the sweeping views of the mountains on every side. The panorama spans Mount Bogon, Mount Feathertop, Mount Buffalo, Mount Buller, and everywhere in between, with some of Australia's most beautiful alpine scenery, grey-blue snow gums and rolling green meadows. The vast expanse of the mountains was magical. It was a clear, windy day, but this section of the road had some of the most amazing views to be found anywhere that we had visited. Because of the wind, we did not stay as long as we might have, had it been calmer, but we did know from the cutting wind that we were on what is surely the most exposed section of any road in Australia. We could only imagine what it would have been like to travel this route via horse-drawn coaches, or like the original mailmen on snowshoes. We then passed Blowhard Hut, a corrugated iron hut where the wind blows down on the south side of the divide. The Mount Hotham area has been a skiing destination for tourists for over 125 years, ever since the first travellers over the ranges strapped timber planks onto their boots at the Mount St Bernard's Hospice in the 1880s. In the mid-1830s, European squatters looking for grazing land began to move into the district, and in 1851 gold was officially discovered in the region. This attracted a large population on each side of the divide and saw significant movement of travellers over the ranges. European settlement of the area began soon after, when several women set up cabins and shanties to house miners in transit between the Dargo, Omeo and Ovens goldfields. Mother Morwell established a log cabin near Mount St Bernard at 1,524 metres and shanties near Freezout and Freeburg, ultimately resulting in the establishment of more permanent populations in the shadow of Mount Hotham. With increased publicity in the 1880s, skiing as a tourist activity began to emerge. Once we had passed through Mount Hotham. It was about a 10 to 15-minute drive to Dinner Plains, and from there the road continues to be steep, twisty, and has a few extreme curves. Once again we took care keeping to the right of the red-orange poles. We stopped at the Mount Kosciuszko lookout that not only looks out at Mount Kosciuszko in New South Wales, but also towards Omeo. What amazing scenery! Rick and I had hiked to the top of Mount Kosciuszko, so it was interesting to see it from a distance while standing here in Victoria. We continued for a while on the twisty road before ending up in Omeo. On our way we passed through Benambra, a farming district since the 1830s, when Scotchman James McFarlane came over from the Monaro Plains in the high country of New South Wales in 1834 to find suitable farming land. From the rock mountain top that he named McFarlane's Lookout, he found just what he was looking for and established his cattle station there in 1835. The same year Melbourne was becoming settled, becoming one of the first areas in Victoria settled by Europeans. We continued on through Swift's Creek, located where Swift's Creek flows into the Tambo River. What a scenic drive through rolling hills beside the Tambo River. In the 1850s, gold was discovered in the district, and soon after the area was settled by gold seekers, before farming and timber became the main industries. Then it was on to Omeo. That was one of the earliest high country towns established in Victoria, and was built directly as a result of the gold rush, with the diggings surrounding the town becoming one of the richest in Australia. Omeo has preserved its history, with gold first discovered along Livingston Creek in 1851. Avenues of deciduous trees lined the road at both ends of town. The scenery along the Great Alpine Road between Ensay, Swift's Creek and Omeo was stunning, with mostly undulating farmland and impressive stands of poplars showing off their golden leaves. Once we left Omeo, the road is moderately steep and is quite twisty between Omeo and Bruthen. From there, the road is straight most of the way through flat or undulating farmland back to Sale. It had been a long and very interesting day. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. I have tried to cover some of the amazing country we had seen along the way, but in places it was difficult to see through the trees, and taking photographs from a moving vehicle is difficult at the best of times, especially travelling on rough gravel or windy roads. Give us a thumbs up if you have enjoyed our journey to the high country. Join us next time as we explore the wetlands at Sale and then make our way to Wilson's Promontory. Stay safe and enjoy life. Cheers for now. Rick and Rosemary. R&R, living life.